Is the window for number 6 cracked back open? Let's talk about it.
Yo, it's time to grind. With Brian on the mic, content is one of a kind. Now, welcome to my show, the BS Report, where we let the truth flow. We're breaking down the stories, shining light on the games. No fake news here, just hot takes throwing flames. The BS Report, yeah, we're keeping it tight. Bringing you the news, making it ignite. Tune in, turn it up, feel the heat rise. With Brian in the house, our takes won't be compromised. From the latest news to the hottest debates, in the BS Report, we're setting the stakes. So come along, join the ride, where Brian and his subscribers are full of Niner pride. Yo.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the BS Report. So, the 49ers have hired Robert Saleh and Brant Boyer to be their defensive coordinator and special teams coordinators, respectively. I want to talk about whether or not Robert Saleh is the perfect balance for Kyle Shanahan. We all know that Kyle, as a head coach, as far as his personality goes, can sometimes leave a lot to be desired. He's real, not very animated. He's not very encouraging, at least from the viewpoint of other coaches, such as Robert Saleh, such as D'Amico Ryans. He's kind of just in his own little bubble. And I think for the last 2 seasons with Steve Wilkes and Sorensen, we've kind of been lacking that energy on the sidelines, that we've kind of lost that bravado a little bit with this team. And I do think that although kind of preferred the 49ers to go in a different direction at defensive coordinator this offseason, I kind of preferred for them to go outside of the box and kind of look for a guy who has a different philosophy than the wide nine scheme we've been running. But I do think from a personality standpoint and a motivational standpoint, an emotional standpoint, I think Robert Saleh is a great fit on this team. I think he is the perfect balance for Kyle Shanahan. I think that in a lot of ways, when Saleh and D'Amico were here, the team took on Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryan's personality more so than it did Kyle's personality. There was always a lot of swag with this team. There was always a lot of kind of, we're better than you and we know it. And it wasn't just words before. Guys like Debo have maintained saying that over the last 2 seasons. But this last season specifically, they weren't able to back it up. In prior years with Robert Saleh and D'Amico Ryans, they didn't just talk the talk, they also walked the walk. And I'm not just talking about wins and losses. I'm talking about intensity. I'm talking about passion. I'm talking about effort. All of those things that this last season just were absent completely. And I really do believe that Robert Saleh brings a level of intensity and a level of passion and energy to this team that's been greatly missing over the last year or two. And I do believe that having that back in the building, having Robert Saleh being able to infuse that into this team is going to be very beneficial. I'm not completely sure if the defense can be what it was when Saleh was here the first time, and even when D'Amico was here, because we don't have the same level of talent and depth on this team. And I don't think that that's even really debatable. So the one thing about the scheme that we run is you have to be deep. You have to be able to send players out there in waves. You have to have speed and quickness, instinctiveness to run this scheme effectively. And I don't know that we still have that present on this team. Now, I'm not for sure saying that we don't, because I do attribute a lot of the shortcomings and a lot of the, I don't know, just, I guess, boring play or effortless play to Sorensen kind of being over his skis a little bit last season. I don't know that all of all of it was a lack of depth and talent. I think some of it was a lack of ingenuity on defense. A lot of it was a lack of confidence in the play caller as well. I would say that there was times when the players on this team, although they like Sorensen, although they vouched for him, maybe didn't have the utmost confidence that he was doing exactly what needed to be done on any given Sunday, play in, play out, to get the job done. I think there was a lot of opportunities for him to put players in better situations, better positions. I think there was plenty of opportunities for him to disguise plays and not be so vanilla with the defense. And I do think that Saleh has the pedigree to be able to come in and change some things, to be able to come in and um, be able to maybe get off of the wide nine road a little bit, take little detours here and there. I think that the base of the scheme is going to stay the same, but I think Robert Saleh has the ability to mold it and turn it into something a little bit different. And I think that there's probably a lot of stuff also that he learned from being the head coach of the Jets that he will be able to incorporate here. A lot of lessons learned, a lot of him being able to experiment with stuff as being the head coach and being able to do what he wanted to do, being able to be his own boss and create things the way that he wanted to do without the fear of repercussions from a head coach above him. So he was probably able to evolve his own scheme and his own thought process and come up with different ways of doing the same thing. That's one of the great things about Kyle is he's able to run so many different plays from very similar, if not the same formations. And I do believe that Robert has probably been able to develop a little bit more of that to be able to show a certain look, but be able to vary off of that in many different ways. Because as the head coach of the Jets, he had the freedom to do whatever he wanted. So I am optimistic that Robert Saleh can come in here and be a little bit more evolved as a coach than he was the last time. And that's not to say that he did anything wrong the last time he was here. In fact, he was a great coach when he was here. Um, but that doesn't mean that he can't be better. Because personally, I would say that D'Amico was an upgrade over Saleh when Saleh left, you know, and it took D'Amico a minute, just like it took Saleh a minute. But I do believe that Saleh could now be an upgrade over D'Amico, just based on the experiences that he's had and the lessons that he's been able to learn. And I have a lot of faith that Saleh is going to be able to come in here and maybe disguise some of the deficiencies of this defense. He'll be able to hide some of the things that we lack, because we just don't have the ability to go out and improve everywhere that we need to improve. We just don't have the assets to do it, and not in one off season. Now, that's not to say that we're not going to get better in certain areas that won't disguise the deficiencies. As I said, namely, one is the defensive coordinator, but that doesn't mean that we can't improve the defensive line to help out the secondary, because our secondary, I think, just naturally, at least to start the season, is more than likely going to be weaker next year with the probable loss of Charvarius Ward and with the likely loss of Talanoa Hufanga. We're going to be running with some less experienced guys. I mean, both of those guys are all pro or Pro Bowl players. And I think that if we improve the defensive line, that could help out in the secondary. We don't know what Dre Greenlaw is going to be. So if we resign him at all. And so, D Winters could step in there and he could, with more playing time next season and a good productive offseason, he might step in and not miss a beat. I think he's extremely fast. Um, he's probably not quite as violent as Greenlaw, but I believe that with an off season to prepare and build up, knowing that he will be the starter if Greenlaw doesn't come back, then you know he might be able to step in and prove some things. I don't think that he's going to be Dre Greenlaw. Don't get me wrong. I really don't. Greenlaw brings a lot more to this team than just what he brings on the field. If we lose Greenlaw, we're losing a lot more than just his play. So I don't expect D Winters to come in and be anything near what Greenlaw was. But it can definitely the linebacker core can definitely be improved over last season. Um, Probably still not as good as it was the season before, but definitely over last season. And so I think that there's small things that can be done on the defensive side of the ball from a personnel standpoint that can probably lift this team with the addition of Robert Saleh above the heights of last season. And so that is definitely encouraging. And I do believe that the 49ers will spend some early assets in the draft and even in free agents on shoring that up. And so I believe that the addition of Robert Saleh really is the perfect balance to Kyle, because I believe that he brings back a mind on the defensive side similar to the mind that Kyle brings on the offensive side. But he brings it with energy and enthusiasm and encouragement. And he just brings a level of swag and confidence back to this team that was severely lacking. And I just don't believe that Kyle Shanahan inspires confidence. Um, in my opinion, I don't know how he could. Now that's not I'm not sitting here trying to say that the team has bailed on Kyle or he's lost the locker room or they're not, you know, all in anymore. But when you've made some of the mistakes that Kyle has made and you've blown some of the things that Kyle has blown as far as leads in big games and just done some of the failures that Kyle has, I think that it's human nature for your confidence to wane a little bit. I don't know how you can maintain 100% full confidence in a coach that has kind of slid off the tracks a couple of times. So again, not to say that the players aren't bought in, not to say that they don't trust Kyle anymore, but I do think that the seed of doubt has been planted. And I think Robert Saleh does a lot to kind of slow that down a little bit, to slow down the growth of that seed. I think Robert Saleh does a lot to, especially on the defensive side of the ball, to build back up that swagger and that confidence and that bravado that's been missing. So, although I would have liked to see a difference in scheme and philosophy change on the defensive side, I do believe that Robert Saleh, his personality and just his overall leadership skills is a great balance to Kyle Shanahan, and maybe even the best option that there was out there, to have the or take the job. So I really do have more hope after the hire than I did prior going into next season. During the whole process up until they announced the signing of Saleh as a defensive coordinator, I was really starting to get irritated, I guess you could say would be the best word, but I was really starting to get a little bit just frustrated. Like, what is going on? Why are we doing nothing? And I do think that the 49ers got lucky. Kyle Shanahan got lucky because, Robert Saleh was this close to getting a head coaching job. And so, you know, had Shad Khan not fired Trent Baalke, Robert Saleh would probably be the head coach of the Jags right now. And it terrifies me to think what plan B was. It terrifies me to think that it was Brandon Staley. Oh my goodness. Or who knows who else, honestly. I can't fathom everything that they said after the season when they let go of Sorensen, how they wanted to do a more exhaustive search and they wanted to have all this time because they didn't make the playoffs, so they were ahead of the game and all this stuff, and then they did nothing. They sat on their hands. And it just blew my mind that they said all of that and then did that. So I do believe that they got extremely lucky that Robert Saleh fell into their lap. Um, because even after the Jags went with Cohen, I wasn't so sure that the Raiders or the Cowboys weren't going to try to snatch him up. In fact, I said in a video where I thought the Jags might try to outbid the Niners for him, considering his closeness with ownership in Jacksonville. And so luckily they didn't, or if they did, Saleh turned it down or whatever. There could be some sour grapes there. I don't know, but I'm extremely grateful that the 49ers got lucky, but I'm also well aware of the fact that they got very lucky. And I hope that that is not the approach that they take to the rest of the offseason, where they zero in on one player and hope and wish it works out, whether it's in the draft or in free agency or otherwise. I really hope that they're a lot more aggressive for the rest of the offseason when it comes to Brock's contract, when it comes to doing something with Kittle, when it comes to the draft and free agency, their attack to the offseason and OTAs and mini camps and all this other stuff. I really hope that this team shows more aggression and more urgency than they did in the head coach or the defensive coordinator search. And so that really has to be something that Jed or you know John York, Denise, somebody needs to tell Kyle, hey, you need to be a little bit more on the attack for the rest of this offseason because we just got very lucky with the Robert Saleh hire. Excuse me. So the next thing I want to talk about is, can this Robert Saleh led defense, can it mask or disguise some of Brock Purdy's shortcomings? What I mean by that is if you look at you look at 2022 and even last year, you look at the years when Jimmy Garoppolo was a quarterback and we had an elite defense, it was able to cover up for the deficiencies of Garoppolo and even Purdy. Because let me tell you, the complaints that some of us have about Purdy right now are not new. They're just more out on the open. They were always there. Purdy's always had a tendency to throw turnover worthy balls. He has. He's always had a tendency to put on his cape and go into hero mode. He's always had that confidence. He's always had that true belief in himself that he can do it. And so these are not new developments. It's just that the defense took a step backwards last year, that he was asked to do stuff like that more. Whether he was asked by the coach or he was asked in his own head because he thought, if I don't do this, we don't have a chance. So I do believe that if Robert Saleh can come in here and turn this defense around and he can make this defense into what it once was, an elite defense that holds teams to 3 and out, that holds teams to, you know, 13 to 17 points a game, 13 to 15 points a game or less, whatever, then Purdy doesn't have to do those things. Kyle Shanahan can call games like he called games in 23 and 22, or even prior to that with Garoppolo. He can, because one thing about Purdy is he is a great quarterback as a front runner. When he's got a lead, he's as good as anybody. It's when Purdy has to be an elite quarterback, when he has to be a franchise quarterback. That's when his true deficiencies really shine through. But when he plays with the lead and he doesn't have to try to put the team on his back, then that's when he's able to relax and settle in, and he tends to make the right decisions. I don't think that Purdy gets rattled necessarily. I just think that when the game is on the line and when the pressure's on and it's on him, I've said this 100 times. He's just not equipped with the tools necessary to get that done. He doesn't have the arm that's necessary to make some of those throws. And that has become more and more evident as we watch these playoffs, right? I mean, we look at the quarterbacks that have made it, this far, and even the AFC and NFC championship games. You look at the plays that those quarterbacks are able to make. Those are not plays that Purdy is capable of making. He's just not. And that's okay if you have an elite defense. That's okay if he's relatively cheap. And I don't mean $1 million cheap. I mean less than 45 million or 50 million cheap. That's what I mean. So as long as you can put some talent around him, and as long as he has an elite defense, he can get it done. Now, inevitably, in the playoffs, in a run towards a Super Bowl, there's bound to be a game where Purdy is going to have to make plays. He's going to have to, for a drive, for a couple of drives, put the team on his back and get it done. Now, the thing with Purdy is, in combination with Kyle Shanahan, when Kyle is at his best for a drive or two or for a game, I think he's capable of doing something like that. I think it's less likely for a whole game. I don't believe that Brock Purdy, from the first whistle to the last whistle, can throw a team on his back and carry him to a W. Without basically, the way we've seen Josh Allen do, the way we've seen Mahomes do, the way we've even seen Jaden Daniels do from time to time, and various other quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm not real confident that Purdy has the ability to do that. But I do think that if you need a drive from Purdy and Kyle has it all together, I believe he can do it from time to time. Now, in my opinion, a franchise quarterback should be able to put a team on his back and carry them through a playoffs. I believe a franchise quarterback can go drive for drive, toe to toe. The way that Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes kept going back and forth at each other, and it was just whoever got the ball last was going to win that game. That's what a franchise quarterback does. A franchise quarterback has a season where, like Joe Burrow had, where he's playing with a horrible offensive line and a god-awful defense, and he still carries a team to respectability. Now, their record didn't show that, but there is no way, shape, or form that you could ever put that on Joe Burrow when you look at that season. And teams can say, or people can say that, well, Brock Purdy, same thing. He had a horrible offensive line and his defense didn't have. Yes, I know. I'll give you that. But there's an argument to be made that some of the crisis and some of the underwhelming play and some of the games that we lost were just as much at the feet of Brock Purdy as they were the defense and the offensive line. I don't know that you can make that same argument for Joe Burrow. So, I would say that, if you're down by 5 points with 2 minutes to go in the Super Bowl or 1 minute to go in the Super Bowl, and you hand Patrick Mahomes the ball, you are almost 100% sure that he's going to go down there and win you that game. Same scenario with Josh Allen. You're at least 90 to 95% sure as a Bills fan that Josh Allen's going to go down there and put you in a position to win the game. You know, the same could be said for Lamar Jackson, I guess, although I don't know. I'm not a believer. I think Lamar Jackson's a very good quarterback. I think he's a great football player. Um, but he doesn't come through. And you can say that Andrews dropped that 2-point conversion and all that other stuff. That's fine. You can say that. But the 2 turnovers in that game by Lamar Jackson, you can't make those unless you have the ability to overcome them. And so whether it's luck or whether it's making their own luck, guys like Mahomes get it done. Guys like Josh Allen get it done. So, I'm not completely sold on Lamar Jackson as a top 3 or 4 quarterback in this league. I'm just not. To me, to be elite, you can't be 2-5 in the playoffs. You just can't. So, with that being said, I do believe that the defense, back to the 49ers. I'm sorry, I get off topic a little bit sometimes, but back to the 49ers defense, I do believe if they get back to their elite play, their top 3, top 5 defense in the league play, then they are capable of masking the deficiencies of Brock Purdy because he won't have to play like he played last year. And I do think you're going to see a quite a bit different Brock Purdy in 25 because of it. And then you're going to have people coming out, see, Brock Purdy deserves 60 million and this and that and the other. Okay. Yeah. That's your opinion and you're free to think that way. But what happens when the defense isn't elite anymore? So that's the biggest question with Brock. He's plenty good enough to get it done when he has talent surrounding him. And Kyle's not blowing games. But when that talent starts to disintegrate, when that talent starts to dissipate and go away, 2024 happens. So to me, the argument is kind of laid out in front of everybody when it comes to Brock. You look at examples in 2023, in the last half of 22, when the talent was there. And then you look at a 3-game stretch in 2023 when he lost 2 or 3 important pieces of that talent. They went on a 3-game losing streak. They get the talent back, and look at what happened. They went the rest of the way to the Super Bowl. Then you look at 2024 when that talent went away because of injuries. And Purdy had to put on his cape. Purdy had to carry. Purdy had to be the man. So to me, I keep having this argument with various people about Brock Purdy. And to me, it's like, there's not an argument here, guys. The proof is in the pudding. It's all out there for everybody to see. Now some people choose to see it one way and other people choose to see it another way. But to me, it's very black and white. There's not a lot of gray area in there. When the team is loaded, Purdy's good. When the team's not loaded, he's not very good. It's that simple as far as I'm concerned. And I really honestly don't see an argument otherwise. So you can't tell me that last year's Chiefs team had more talent than this year's 49ers team. And last year's Chiefs team definitely had a lot less talent than last year's 49ers team. And they still won because they had an elite quarterback and they had an elite head coach. And I can't emphasize that part enough. They had 2 elite coaches. Both of their head coach and their defensive coordinator are both better than Kyle Shanahan. Huge difference. And Brock Purdy is not even in the same stratosphere, universe, whatever you want to say, as Patrick Mahomes. He's just not. So while the defense, I do believe, can mask some of Purdy's shortcomings, they can't completely cover him up because there is still bound to be games when he's going to have to go out there and make it happen. Now, can he strike lightning in a bottle every now and then and do it? Yes. But am I going to have 90% confidence when it's that time for him to do it? If next year, or let's say the 49ers made the playoffs this year, and it was the wild card game, and the Niners are down by 5 with a minute and 30 seconds to go, and they get the ball back. What is my confidence level that Purdy's going to drive them down to score a touchdown and win the game? Less than 50%. If I'm being honest, I'm going to be a nervous wreck. I'm going to be pacing behind my chair or my couch. I'm going to be, yeah, I'm going to be a nervous wreck. No question about it. To me, if you have one of the 5 best quarterbacks and elite quarterback on your team, you shouldn't be having those emotions, in my opinion. Like that's excessive if you have a franchise quarterback. And we just don't. So yeah, the defense can mask some of Purdy's shortcomings, and they can probably help him to have a very, very good season. But I think in the playoffs, if he has to put together more than a drive from time to time, those shortcomings are going to shine back through. And I don't put all of that on him also because there's some things that we still really don't know about Purdy. Because I really do think that Kyle holds him back. I really do think that he hasn't been able to grow to his complete full potential because of Kyle Shanahan. And so I think in order for Purdy to evolve, so does Kyle. And I don't have a lot of confidence that that's going to happen. And that's one of the reasons also why I don't know that Purdy can get it done, because is Kyle going to put him in a position to be able to get it done? Is Kyle going to bolster the offensive line enough to where Purdy can actually have time? Is Kyle going to let Purdy be able to assert himself in a way to have the confidence to lead a drive like that? Because here's the thing, when your head coach has his thumb on you all the time, there's only so much confidence you can actually have in a situation like that. So, you know, I think if Kyle were to loosen the reins a little bit and let Brock be a little bit more free, I think you would see a little bit more growth from it. I still don't know that he's going to grow into one of those guys. In fact, I'm fairly certain he won't. But I do believe that he can grow into something more than he is, where you can have a little bit more faith that he can lead a drive like that. Maybe not less than 50%, maybe 60%, 70% faith that he can do it. But as it currently stands, with what Brock has shown us and what Kyle has shown us, and Kyle's dedication to protecting Brock, then I would say that I don't have any reason to have faith that he'll get it done. I don't have any reason to believe that he's going to be able to step up and make it happen. And I don't have any reason to believe that Kyle will. Now, I sincerely hope that they both prove me wrong, and I have to come on here in front of all the super fans for Brock Purdy and all the Kyle Shanahan super fans and eat crow. I will gladly do it. I mean, I will have a hat made that says Brock Purdy super fan, and a t-shirt or a hoodie made that says Kyle Shanahan super fan, and I will wear them on my streams for a week straight if Brock and Kyle can get it done and win us a Super Bowl. More specifically, Kyle. I have less faith in Kyle than I do in Brock. So if they can do that, I will gladly do it. I will 100%. I'll put a flag right here behind me that says Kyle Shanahan superfan on it and hang it there for all time. It'll never come down. But I don't think it's going to happen. So, I don't think that Kyle it's frustrating because he has the intellectual ability, he has the coaching pedigree, he has the knowledge of football, he has everything that it takes to be a great head coach besides humility. He is so damn stubborn and so egotistical. I don't know if he's insecure. I don't know what it is. But he just does not have the ability to be self-aware enough to make the adjustments that need to be made for him to be successful at the highest level. Because ultimately, if Kyle Shanahan were to retire from coaching today, in the grand scheme of things, he's a very successful coach. He's been to 2 Super Bowls, multiple NFC championship games. And just the fact that he ever became a head coach, he's extremely successful in life. But when I say ultimate success, it's hoisting that Lombardi trophy. And I just don't know that he's ever going to get out of his way enough to be able to do it. So I hope so. But I'm not so sure it's going to happen. I'm not. And I think that that's why the defense can only take us so far, honestly. There has been teams out there that have won the Super Bowl with elite defenses and quarterbacks probably worse than Brock Purdy. I mean, and no, not probably, factually worse than Brock Purdy. Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson, guys like that. But here's the thing. Those teams didn't have coaches that, for lack of a better word, sabotaged the game, that gave away the game. I think that if Robert Saleh was the head coach and Kyle was offensive coordinator, the defense could, I don't know. Because Dan Quinn was the head coach and Dan Quinn couldn't even overcome Kyle Shanahan as the offensive coordinator. I think if we had another great offensive coordinator, even just slightly less than Kyle, but we had a guy like D'Amico or Robert Saleh or Spagnuolo or, any number of coaches, Mike Tomlin, the defense, yes, could definitely lead us to a Super Bowl. But as long as we have a coach like Kyle that is going to do his best to blow the game at the end in the second half, I don't believe that the defense can overcome him, because ultimately he's got the last say. And there's only so much that the defense can do. And when you keep putting them in one horrible position after another horrible position and expect them to come out and make stop after stop after stop. I mean, look at the games that Patrick Mahomes has had against us in the Super Bowl. They weren't otherworldly games. But Kyle kept putting this defense in positions to where they had to play out of their mind. They had to keep making miraculous stop after miraculous stop, and eventually you're only going to do that so much against a great quarterback. Because I'm a firm believer that a great quarterback beats a great defense 8 out of 10 times, 7 out of 10 times. I really do believe that. I mean, all things being equal, I would much rather have an elite top of his game quarterback than an elite top of their game defense. So, on the defense, when you're on defense, when you're a coach or a fan, you're relying on your defense to stop somebody else. But your quarterback has the ability, he's in control. He's the one that has the ability to go and get it done. And so I really do believe that with Kyle as the coach, we will win a lot of games. We'll make it to the playoffs. We'll win all the way to the NFC Championship game. We might even win some of those games and make it to the Super Bowl. But when it's time to get over that hump, I just don't see it happening with him running the show. Unless some miracle happens and he wakes up and has some sort of epiphany and just totally changes his outlook and his personality. Because listen, you don't get it, you don't get all the way to, what is he, 47, 48 years old, and then all of a sudden just change who you are. Kyle's not going to change. He is who he is. 100%. That's not going anywhere. So I find it very unlikely that he'll ever be anything more than what he is. So I guess the big picture is, can the defense win us a Super Bowl? Yeah, they can. Definitely, they can. The offense has plenty of talent to win us a Super Bowl with an elite San Francisco 49ers defense. But I don't think they will, and I don't think that has anything to do with them. I don't think this defense will ever lead us to a Super Bowl because of the head coach, because of this head coach. But I'll tell you what, it'll be fun to watch. It'll be fun to follow this next season with you guys on the channel here. And again, I want to say thank you to all of you who have subscribed and commented and liked and shared my videos. I really appreciate you guys. Yeah, let me know in the comments, what do you guys think? Is this defense with Robert Saleh, if they do some minor adjustments here and there, are they good enough to carry this team to a Super Bowl? Are they good enough to mask Brock Purdy's shortcomings? And do you believe with Kyle Shanahan, this team is capable of winning a Super Bowl? Until next time, guys, later.